Permanent stat buffs, secret loot stashes, guaranteed uncut gems, one-off encounters, and unique side bosses. G'day, Ziggy D here with the Explorer's Guide to Path of Exile 2's first act.
Each victory is but another milestone in this path.
Path of Exile 2 is a difficult game, but exploration is your secret weapon to overcoming each challenge. The developers specifically set out to jam-pack tons of guaranteed rewards and special bonus loot sources to help you out in your campaign progress, and you should take advantage of them. Whether you're a beginner, trying hardcore for the first time, or a veteran looking to improve their fresh league starts. Many of the game's special encounters are indicated on the world map with a special icon when you've discovered them, but not all of them are. Pay special attention to the ones with the plus symbols, as these show encounters with important rewards, such as permanent stat buffs, which you do not want to miss. I'll take you on a tour of each special location in Act 1, and I'll let you know whether there's any guaranteed special loot for you to take advantage of there. I will show you how to find each location, but remember that maps can vary from playthrough to playthrough. Make sure to keep an eye on your minimap for unusual formations, and look out for checkpoints, as many encounters have one nearby. Many of these events are repeatable when you enter a fresh instance of their zone. Randomized loot like gold and gear from rare chests, for example, can usually be obtained multiple times when you reset each zone. Guaranteed rewards, however, can only be obtained once. Most events are available again in cruel difficulty while it exists in early access, but many of the rewards do change from difficulty to difficulty. I'll let you know of any major differences between the difficulties and whether things are worth redoing in cruel. So without further delay, let's set off to plunder the secrets of Path of Exile 2's first act. Now, there's not really a warm welcome to the OGHAM region once you leave the CLEARFELL encampment. Only the cold and hungry dead prowl the dark detritus of CLEARFELL. But easily missed within this large zone are two special encounters that can help kickstart your journey. Keep an eye out for a campsite with a notice of criminality and a checkpoint nearby. Count Gianor sent his men here to hunt down and kill peasants hiding from his wrath in CLEARFELL. Once you clear out the campsite's undead guards, you can loot the stash, which has a guaranteed skill gem. This gives you a quick third skill right at the start of the game, and that added weapon in your arsenal can be a bit of a game changer for your early game for some characters. It's especially helpful if you plan to take on the next challenge right away. As you explore the CLEARFELL, keep your ear out for any creepy singing. Approach the source of this unholy sound and you can enter the arena of Biera of the Rotten Pack. This unique vile hag attacks with large amounts of cold damage and summons packs of rotten wolves to surround you. Be careful, as low-level characters stumbling across her must move and attack with calm precision lest they lose out on a war of attrition. You can flee the arena if things become too much for you, but make sure you do it with a bit of time to spare so that you can escape the swarms of wolves with some life left. Not like that. If you're feeling outmatched, come back after a level up and a gear upgrade or two, or try again from the checkpoint and just brute force it. You do want to defeat Biera though. You don't want to skip this one because in addition to the random boss loot, which can be quite impactful in this campaign, she also drops the head of the winter wolf. It howled alone on the eve of the first snow, now it snarls forever, heralding the cold. Crush the skull of the winter wolf to undo the crone's curse, and get your first permanent buff, an additional 10% cold resistance. For the newer players joining us, this is a big deal as resistances are one of the most important defensive layers you can have. And this free buff to your resistance makes gearing a lot easier in the future. Make sure you defeat Biera in cruel difficulty as well for another 10% cold resistance. Now a little bit of a bonus that almost didn't warrant its own chapter, but as you head into the mud burrow to hunt down the Devourer, you may be feeling a little bit nervous about having so many empty gear slots in your character. That's pretty normal here. The hatchery area in the mud burrow is a tiny little missable thing that's just a bunch of eggs that you can shatter for a chance at a bunch of basic gear. It's not much, but every little bit helps at this point. And I'm sure the CLEARFELL encampment appreciates the pest control efforts. After you've defeated the Devourer and ventured into the dark, despair-filled confines of the GRELWOOD, you'll quickly learn why the locals try to steer clear. While death leaps at you from every shadow, this zone has a couple good exploration opportunities to take advantage of to empower your character. Deep within the woods lies the well-hidden witch hut of Areagne, the Forgotten Witch. Keep an eye on your minimap for the checkpoint and the circular walls of her hut, but it is easy to miss. Areagne dwells within, and when disturbed from her work, she will disappear to outside where you can fight her. Areagne is an example of a special kind of monster in Path of Exile too. She's technically a rare monster and not a unique boss, but she's not random like rares typically are. She's what I refer to as a unique rare, a handcrafted rare monster with a specific name that's always here. While Areagne can be a little bit dangerous, this is an encounter you will want to take advantage of. Areagne drops some random loot and a guaranteed uncut support gem, which is likely only your second support at this point, and that's potentially a huge boost to your skill's damage. But that is not all, because head into her hut and you can also loot her cauldron for some new life and mana flasks. This is potentially an upgrade if you haven't managed to find any yet. For the newer players, keeping your flasks as up to date as possible is one of the best things you can do for your defenses. Not to mention, running out of mana is a good way to die very swiftly. This encounter giving you a combination of upgraded recovery and more damage or utility from the support gem, both at the same time when you've just stumbled into some more difficult zones, makes this witch hut a well-timed secret encounter to take advantage of. Definitely one to visit on all fresh start playthroughs. Brambleghast is a unique side boss located in the Bramble Arena inside of the GRELWOOD. And while the arena is pretty easy to see on the minimap, the GRELWOOD is a large zone, so it's still kind of easy to miss. If you stumble into the arena early on, you may be in danger of falling victim to some powerful slams from this rather intimidating boss. And be careful too, as Brambles does close off the arena entrance, locking you inside with them. Well-timed dodge rolls will carry you hard in this fight, and crowd control like freeze or stun can be very potent on larger, slower bosses like this. This boss is farmable with zone resets for boss loot, but not really worth doing so. Most importantly though, on your first kill, Brambles drops a guaranteed uncut skill gem, which can be helpful for building out your skill list. If you do need the extra skill, it's a worthwhile side trek, but otherwise it's a fairly optional and skippable, but fun side boss. A special note here as well for the Rotten Druid in the Grim Tangle below the GRELWOOD. It's a unique side boss that, when defeated, drops a guaranteed uncut support gem in addition to its random boss loot. The Rotten Druid's large Rock Slam and Poison Barrage abilities can be quite dangerous, making this a bit of a risky and potentially unnecessary fight in hardcore mode, though uncut support gems are very attractive. Beware as well of the glowing yellow fungus, which can explode when touched. One of the Druid's moves teleports you into the center fungus as well, so be prepared to dodge roll away. This is a boss you may well want to skip in hardcore mode, unless you really want that support gem. Remember that you can always come back and get these guaranteed rewards later on when it's a bit safer to do so. The side area, the Red Vale, has a secret loot mechanic where there is guaranteed to be one of each second tier weapon base if you search the weapon piles that are scattered around. It's a clever little catch-up mechanic designed by the developers to help players if they're struggling. So if you're still using your starting weapon when you get here, then you can click these piles to eventually get yourself an upgrade. It's not much, but for attack builds, grabbing an earlier higher weapon tier to transmute can make a big difference to your damage, and just in time for the boss fight in that zone too. The Cemetery of the Eternals is home to several secrets that can be fairly impactful to your character, including one that is farmable for golden loot if you're struggling. Grave robbing wouldn't be a crime if it wasn't so profitable, right? Within the Cemetery of the Eternals is the location marked as the Ancient Ruins, which is a sarcophagus you can disturb for a random ring. Kinda messed up, I know, especially if you read the lore there, but getting any jewelry, even a simple iron ring, this early in the game is very impactful. Use an Orb of Transmutation and an Orb of Augmentation on the ring if you're able to attempt to get some helpful affix modifiers. Consider using a Regal Orb to turn it into a rare, especially if you manage to obtain anything decent like life, resistances, or relevant damage modifiers. A ring with 2 or 3 decent affixes can last you multiple acts in the campaign due to just the rarity of jewelry in general and the effectiveness of their modifiers even from low levels. The Ancient Ruins are available in Cruel difficulty too, where they drop a greater variety of higher level rings. This includes things like gold rings and the resistance-based types, which are potentially quite useful. The Cemetery of the Eternals features 2 large interior tombs that you'll travel to for the quest. One of these is the Mausoleum of the Praetor, which contains the hidden treasure trove, Forgotten Riches. Look for a checkpoint and a large sarcophagus with a hidden switch on a nearby pillar. The shape of this area on the minimap is quite distinctive. Once opened, you can descend to loot many piles of gold in multiple rare chests. This encounter does not have any guaranteed items, just random gold and loot, but it is repeatable by resetting the zone via a waypoint. Click the location on the map to bring up the Instance Manager menu. It's actually pretty quick to reset the zone and run this treasure trove again and again if you so happen to need to. It can also be found in Cruel difficulty. It's not the most profitable use of your time, but many players have found it helpful if they run out of gold mid-respec or if they need a power boost before the bosses of these zones. Having little tools like this in your back pocket is pretty handy in hardcore difficulty as well if you're feeling a little bit too scared. Within the other tomb, the Tomb of the Consort, a tantalizing ghostly chest summons you down a narrow passage. This is obviously a trap, but as if you're not going to try it anyway. The Embattled Trove lures you in only to be ambushed by a rare monster lying in wait. It's not hugely threatening most of the time, but being stuck in a hallway with a random rare monster and you might not be able to get past them can be a little bit of a concerning situation to be in, especially in hardcore mode. These monsters here can drop some loot, and the encounter gives a guaranteed uncut support gem in normal difficulty. But it's primarily designed to be a trap, so be wary. The neglected hunting grounds is overrun with dangers and ripe with juicy game for your exploration hunt. A bit of time spent here can make all the difference as you push into the end of the act and the major boss fights to come. One such exploration feature is the large ritual altar, somewhere in the middle-ish area. This leads to a quest to speak to Finn and investigate Freythorn. Now, quests aren't the domain of this exploration guide. Those are written down for you in-game after all. But the ritual altar here is technically optional and easily missed. It's intended to give you some bonus loot and to point you on the path of Finn's important side quest. Ensure you do follow this quest though, as it results in a permanent +30 spirit buff and an uncut spirit gem. The ritual altar itself here contains rare monsters and is a pretty good source of loot. As you explore the hunting grounds, stick to the outer edges of the zone, and you're guaranteed to eventually find the strange arena of Crowbell, the unique side boss. Look for the swing gate for the entrance. The Crowbell is an angry bird. Don't let them ring your bell. You have to chase the boss from arena to arena until you can pluck from their corpse a permanent +2 passive skill points. Make sure you don't miss it. There's one more thing to find in the hunting grounds, and that is the Dryadic ritual. You'll know it when you see it from the name. Several tree creatures channel a ritual that summons a large rare monster. The first time you kill this rare, it drops a guaranteed uncut support gem, which is something you always need more of in the campaign. It's also available in Cruel difficulty, where it drops a higher level uncut support gem too. As you explore the OGHAM farmlands, don't forget to find Una's loot for her. It's located in a small hut. It's technically a quest again, so not part of this guide, but I thought I'd just remind you so that you don't miss the +2 passives that it grants in both normal and Cruel difficulties. Now, the crop circle in OGHAM farmlands is distinctively creepy, and for good reason. Step into the circle and you will be ambushed by a pack of hungry dogs, led by a unique rare feral mutt. While not individually threatening, these enemies are fast and they can surround you quickly, and many a squishy player has fallen victim to them. Be prepared with an area of effect skill to blast them down, or some sort of escape skill to get out of the way. The first time you clear this ambush, it drops you an uncut skill gem, so it's not super worth going out of your way for, but it's a fun little encounter. While exploring the next zone, the burning OGHAM village, you can visit Renley's workshop to scoop up some tools to take back to town so that you can unlock the all-important salvage bench. Look for the narrow entrance with a checkpoint and the blacksmith's anvil sign. The salvage bench allows you to destroy socketed items for artificer's shards and quality items for quality currency such as blacksmith whetstones. In order to have enough resources as you progress in a fresh playthrough, you must use the salvaging bench on most socketed items and all quality weapons and armor that you don't plan to use. It's a good idea to start early on. You don't need to find the tools and unlock the salvage bench in Cruel or on any other character in that same game mode. Just doing it once on your first character unlocks it from that point onwards. The Mana Ramparts in OGHAM Manor are your final march to the end of the act. And OGHAM Manor is the most dangerous zone in the entire act. And its final boss will be your greatest challenge. So any last minute boosts you can get are crucial. Midway through the Mana Ramparts, there are a set of gallows with the Count's decree nailed to it. There's a checkpoint nearby to help identify the location, so it's pretty hard to miss this one. But what you might miss is the fact that you can cut down the Hanged Man here to loot an uncut support gem. Every additional support is a big deal, and this one could make all the difference in the zones to come. In the first floor of the OGHAM Manor is the Psalm of Madness, which when read, awakens something that has been sleeping. Candlemas, the fiery candle boss, is a fairly manageable boss if you haven't neglected your fire resistance too much. Be sure to dodge roll behind them to avoid their fire breath. Defeating Candlemas in normal difficulty grants a permanent buff of +20 maximum life. And don't forget that defeating it again in cruel difficulty also gives a bonus, though this time it's a buff of 8% increased maximum life. Pretty substantial. Both of these are super important permanent buffs that you should not miss out on. Now, as a little aside for the lore hunters, there's a few little bonuses as you finish out the act. Explore the OGHAM Manor thoroughly to find a couple hidden rooms with some interesting journals. There's no special loot in them, but there are some insights into Count Geonor's descent into madness. So here's a quick summary of the best loot and permanent buffs to make sure that you didn't miss anything. Get the cold resistance from Biera of the Rotten Pack in Act 1 Normal and Cruel for a total of 20%. The early uncut skill and support gems from the Abandoned Stash in CLEARFELL and Areagne the Witch Hut in GRELWOOD are both really helpful with how early you get them. The random ring from the Ancient Ruins gravesite can potentially be something that'll last you a few acts, so it's quite worth getting. The farmable Forgotten Riches in the Mausoleum of the Praetor is a good thing to just know about. It's fun to go get a bunch of loot in there, and it can be a good backup plan if needed. Make sure you don't miss the +30 spirit buff and your first uncut spirit skill gem, and don't forget to right click and activate it from the Freythorn side quest. And don't miss Una's loot in the OGHAM Farmlands for your +2 passive points. Grab Renley's tools from OGHAM Village to unlock the salvage bench and start using it. And finally, don't miss the bonus life from Candlemas in OGHAM Manor in normal and in cruel difficulties. I hope you've enjoyed this first part of the Explorer's Guide to Path of Exile 2. My quest is to find and document every one of these neat hidden encounters that the devs have put so much effort into tucking away into the game. I love that they've done this for the game. I think it's a huge improvement to the campaign experience. So if you find anything that I've missed, I've been pretty thorough, but I'll be interested to see if you can come up with anything. Let me know about it in the comments below, and I'll make sure to update future guides and definitely the written guide on Maxroll as well. Be sure to subscribe as well to catch any future guides to Act 2 and 3, and of course the rest of the acts when they add them. That's it for now. I'm Ziggy D, and thanks for watching.